Hey guys, it's Quentin West. I put together a quick video of some of the most common questions that you guys have. I took about 40 to 50 questions. We're going to dive in today. We're going to go in depth on some major questions you have about operating in the space, optimization, pricing, or even getting started. So if you get some value out of this video, like it, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So to get things started, got a quick question from Jason. He says, what should I do about propane tanks, fire pits, and grills when guests burn through them or leave them on? And I would say go over to Amazon, and this isn't going to stop things completely, but they've got these little propane shutoff valves where you can run it for 10, 20, 30 minutes all the way up to an hour. They've got some cheaper ones too. This is going to be what I would recommend for mitigating that propane waste. Let's go to the next one. Looks like we got a question from Caroline. Who should handle cleaning and restocking supplies between guests? For us specifically, I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines that charges us about $7 an hour to do this for us. The cleaner will report it to her, and then she will go ahead and order those for us off of Amazon with the card that we provide her with. Before this, I just did it myself. I would have a cleaner report it to me based off of a checklist we provide them, where after every cleaning they go through it, they check things off that we need, and then send a picture either through text or through Slack to us so that we can order those. Then we have Ann, how do I prevent guests from trashing my home? So I think all prevention starts off with screening guests. And I think we have a question about that here too from Larry. How do we effectively screen guests? So if we really want to make sure that people don't trash our home, or at least give us the best chance for having a good guest experience, it's important to ask the right questions. So for us, when we screen guests, we ask them three major questions. Have you ever been on the site or used Airbnb and VRBO before? What are you coming to the area for? Who are you traveling with? And if it's somebody that doesn't have any Airbnb experience and we're worried about them damaging the home, we'll ask them if they have anyone in their party that could book the property for them, since they don't have any previous experience. Now, Kimberly, how do you handle difficult guests without losing your temper? I just keep in mind that this is a business. It's very easy to lose your temper, but when you understand and keep in mind that this is an investment, and regardless of them getting upset with you or who was wrong or whatever, you're the one laughing to the bank. So I always ask this question to people that I feel like want to be right. Do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? Because there's some cases where you can't be both. And I've learned that if I keep my temper in check and I just focus on, what's ultimately going to make my business the most successful, those decisions help put more money in my pocket. If I lose my temper, not only am I going to have a pretty bad disagreement with the guest, but more often than not, I'm going to lose more money on the back end of that. So best just to keep your temper in check. Then we have another Kimberly. How do you control what's happening at multiple properties without constant stress? So I would say I wouldn't focus so much on controlling everything. You're going to lose your mind and add a ton of stress to yourself by having to do that. What has helped me control, even in multiple states, is just having systems and people. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you really want to expand across multiple markets, multiple properties, or even in multiple states, you need people and systems that are going to alleviate that stress from you. You need a standard operating procedure that your employees and the people working with you know to follow when something happens. So for instance, we had several properties that we managed even in different countries, and I had to really depend on my team to handle those properly, because if they didn't, I wouldn't be awake to even handle them. If there was some kind of an emergency, they were the only ones awake to handle those. Like we had a few properties in Bali. There's a huge time difference between here and Bali. And if the team didn't handle those properly and I didn't trust them and set them up for success by putting the systems and the right people in place, then those properties would have fallen apart. Next we have Aaron. How do you deal with false cleanliness complaints and report or refund abuse when Airbnb sides with guests? So this is all about prep. So we have our cleaners do a quick walkthrough and take photos of everything in the home prior to cleaning and then after cleaning. That way we have time-stamped images of how the property looks after they finish. And in most cases, this will combat any kind of refund abuse that you're dealing with. Whoops. We've got Rita. Should I hire a cleaning crew or continue cleaning myself? This would be a question of what your time is worth. And I know this can be a conflicting topic. But think about how much money you make in a year, divide that by 2,000 working hours, and then divide that by 4. And the reason why we divide it by 4 is we want to see, we want to get some leverage with our time. If we're going to pay for somebody to do something, we don't want it to cost exactly what our time is worth. So for instance, if our time is worth, let's say we make $100,000 in a year, and we divide that by 2,000 working hours. What is that? Let me run it real quick. That's $50. So in this scenario, our direct time is worth $50. Now, if we want to divide this by 4 for leverage, this gives us a value of our leverage time at $12.50. So in this scenario, if we make $100,000 in a year, I would recommend hiring anyone that we can hire that we can pay for $12.50 an hour or less. So let's say it takes you 3 hours to clean your property. So we multiply this by 3, that's going to give us $37.50. So if we can clean our home for less than $37.50 in this scenario, then I would probably recommend doing it. Or if we are completely maxed out in our business making $50 an hour, we literally don't have any more time to put into that cleaning a property, then that would also make sense to clean the house, because then you're going to have to let go of $50 an hour to then make the $12.50 or make it the $12.50. So it just makes more sense to hire out in that scenario. Next, we have a question from Jody. My Airbnb is dead. Why am I getting no bookings? Typically, the reason why most people are not getting bookings is a few things. The biggest one is their Airbnb isn't optimized. So in this day and age, it is absolutely crucial that you have an optimized listing. What does that mean? It means that your property is getting maximum visibility. You know that it's showing up on the front page at least 50% of the time or more. It's getting great views. It is set up in a way where you have search engine optimization, you're utilizing keywords, and your pricing is 100% dialed in. If all of those things aren't aligned properly, then you're not going to get booked. At least if all those things aren't aligned properly, then you're not going to get booked, at least in the way that you should be. And so when I look at a property and we do an initial audit on a listing and why it's not getting booked, the first thing that we look at is the pricing right? You know, as dumb as that sounds, if the pricing isn't aligned, if you're $50, $100, $200 a night more than your next greatest competitor, then you're not going to get booked, because people can literally scroll through search and look at the one right next to you and book that one for much cheaper. And then once we figure out that the pricing is set up correctly, we can go in a little bit deeper on things like constraints, which typically align around nightly minimums, 2, 3, 4, 5 night minimum stay. We can look at any other settings that may be causing issues for not getting booked or even not showing up in search. But I would say in general, the reason why most hosts are not getting booked is because they're just not getting seen. It's not that they don't have a great property. It's not that they're not a great host. People just aren't seeing them, so they don't have the opportunity to even get booked. Kathleen's question. I'm a Superhost, updated title and photos, and still no bookings. Why? Well, Kathleen, I would bet it stems a lot from Jody's question. in general, being a superhost really means absolutely nothing when it comes to profitability. If you can get enough bookings, respond in a certain period of time, and get ratings above a 4.8, you can get Superhost status. And pretty much anybody can achieve that as long as they hit those guidelines, and it has nothing to do with your profitability. So instead, what I would focus on is how optimized you are. Again, I'm not going to harp on that too much, but being optimized is the absolute number one most important thing for you and your listings going into 2026 and beyond. All right, Ronaldo. Why did my booking stop after the first month? So it could be a combination of different things, Ronaldo. I can't see your listing, so I can't speak directly to what you're seeing. But in some cases, what happens is if you get completely booked up, you're no longer within that booking window where people are looking to book your place. So for instance, if your average booking lead time, which is the average period of time when people are actually booking your home or homes in the area, is about 45 days out, and you're booked out for the next 60 days, then physically no one is looking to book in your area for that period of time. And so that could be a big reason why you're not getting booked. Something else could just be that you lost momentum. You started booking up very well on the front end, and then something changed. Either your pricing wasn't as dialed in, it wasn't as relevant to the market, or maybe you did something, you got a bad review, or something happened where Airbnb started pushing your ranking back. You could also just be in slow season right now, and that could be causing a dramatic shift. So it could be a lot of different things, but without looking at your listing specifically, it would be hard to say. All right, Patricia, I'm not getting bookings lately. How do I fix it? Full optimization. Again, I'm going to keep harping on this, but the biggest thing with getting bookings is optimization. Being set up properly from an SEO standpoint where you have enough keywords. Keywords are what help you get seen more frequently. Think about keywords as like lottery tickets. If you want to win the lottery, you need to have as many tickets as possible to have higher chances. Those keywords set you up to get matched with more potential people. So for instance, if your property has a crib is a keyword for you. You will get automatically shown to people searching in your market that have small families that are looking for homes with a crib. And it's gotten so good now with the algorithm that people don't even have to search for crib. Airbnb already knows what size of family they have, how they have younger kids, their previous booking history, and they will show you to them based on that keyword. So it's really important to have those items. All right, David, why am I booking slow after years of strong performance? I would bet that you've pretty much not changed anything over the years, and the market has dramatically changed. So when there's that much of a shift in the marketplace and your strategy hasn't changed, if you're not being fully optimized, if you're not using a pricing strategy, if you don't understand how to really get booked in different parts of the season, then you're going to struggle because the market and the competition is getting more strict. It is becoming imperative for you to understand optimization and how that process works. All right, Renee, why am I super stuck on page 10? Again, this kind of goes with Kathleen's. Being a superhost means nothing. It literally means nothing. You get a little bit better of a promotion on the site, and you get better customer service. But outside of that, I would say there's really no benefit of being a superhost. Now they're even prioritizing guest favorite over superhost status. So really, there's a huge misconception in how important being a superhost actually is. Kathleen, bookings are slow right now. Why? Kind of goes hand in hand with Ronaldo's questions, Patricia's questions. Really comes down to being fully optimized. And if you're in your slow season, having a hybrid strategy would be absolutely important. What we do in our slow season is we start building relationships with mid-terminal companies. So like corporate housing, travel and nurses, insurance claims, like people that had a fire or flood in their home and they need a place to stay. We'll build relationships with those companies so we can fill our calendar during our slow period when there's not many people traveling to that area. Mike, why are most of my bookings coming from Booking.com instead of Airbnb? Well, there's a very unique thing that happens with Airbnb. Airbnb is a selfish platform, meaning that when you have a lot of blocked off dates, they tend to push you to page 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way far out to even page 15 in some cases. Some cases you can't even find your listing. The reason why is because they want to work with hosts that prioritize their platform. That's just what it comes down to. So if you get booked up consistently on another platform like Booking.com or VRBO, and you have a lot of blocks, then Airbnb will slowly push you lower and lower in search, to the point where you get to where you're at right now, where you're primarily getting booked on Booking.com and not Airbnb because you don't have that availability. All right, Sarah, how do I increase my bookings? So first off, I do a full listing audit. There's about 30 checkpoints that we go through when looking at a listing and identifying what's causing it not to get booked. I would do a full listing optimization. That way you set a full foundation. You've got your keywords dialed in, your title, your photo order. You've got professional photos. Your pricing is set up correctly. And then from there, I would look at your data to figure out what else is missing. So in general, we go into the Airbnb insights. We look at first page search impressions, search to listing conversion rate, listing to booking conversion rate, and overall booking conversion rate. And we use that information to determine what adjustments to make with our listing. But we can't use that data properly until we get a properly optimized listing, meaning everything is set up and you have a solid foundation. Otherwise, you're trying to make adjustments on something that's already broken, which isn't good. All right, Violet, how do I attract more guests and improve occupancy? Similar things that we've talked about in the past. But outside of optimization, I would say it's ongoing adjustments and improvements. We're constantly looking at that data. We're looking at how our conversion rate changes and shifts through different seasons. We're looking at how quickly people are booking out. If we're having to make a lot of manual adjustments to our pricing and figuring out and making decisions on what to adjust from there. And that's how we really maximize revenue over time. All right, Terry, how do I increase off-season bookings? So to make this a short response, you can't market to the same people when they are making a different purchasing decision with the same strategy you use in peak season. So what I mean by that is when people slow down with bookings, they know they have more time, they know they can get discounts, they know there's plenty of availability. You can't try to market to them the same way that you do in your peak season. And so the biggest changes and shifts that we make during slow season is, one, we change our pricing model. We optimize for longer term stays and minimize the 1 and 2 and 3 night stays that block our calendar from us getting those longer stays. We build relationships with midterm companies, and we change our marketing. Because if we have a great photo of a pool or something that people traveling during the summer would be interested in, and it's 40 degrees outside, nobody's booking by looking at those photos anymore. It may look pretty, but nobody's really coming to use the pool when it's 40 degrees. So we want to adjust our marketing during that time to match the expectations of those travelers during that season. Martha, how do I get more guests in the off season? Same thing. I'm going to skip over this one. How do I get longer stays without killing bookings? So we prioritize longer stays in the slow season. And the way that we do that is we set pricing rules. So we'll increase our 1 night stay pricing. So if we are typically around $200 a night, we'll increase our price to about $300 a night. And then for a 2 night stay, 3 night stay, 4 night stay, all the way out to a 7 or 10 night stay, we'll add discounts for those additional dates. So for instance, if we have a 2 night stay, we may take 2% off. A 3 night stay, 5%. A 4 night stay, 7%. A 6 night stay, 8%, 10%, and so forth. And that way, as you add on more dates, we're more competitive and it's more appealing to book a longer term stay. Now, one caveat I will throw in here is if you're less than 30 days out from your booking window and you still have a lot of vacancy, I would cancel out that strategy and just be very aggressive with pricing. This is not something that you want to hammer down on and like wait for somebody to do a 10-night stay if it's the day of. You want to remove those rules for last minute stays so that you can make sure that your calendar gets full and have the best chances of doing that. Teresa, how do I rank higher with this seasonal rental? So you have to keep in mind that everybody's competing on the same playing field with real estate. The only things that we can adjust are the way that we market, the way that we price, and the amenities and decor that we have in the property. So to rank higher in general, the things that are going to change that most frequently is converting at a higher rate. And what that means is based off of the number of people you're getting shown to, we need to get more of them to book our property. So the way that we can do that is by putting more of our good photos up front so they can make a booking decision faster. We can price more competitively. We can add more amenities. And by doing all of those things during our peak seasons, even in our off season too, we can book up more frequently year round and make more money. Sherry, how do I get summer bookings for a ski in and ski out property? So it depends on what's in the area. For any ski in, ski out properties, it's important that you market differently, especially with these homes. If you're in an area where there's other things to do, outside of skiing during the summer, you want to build relationships with those companies. That way they can send people to you to stay. Even offering discounts or giving kickbacks to those people for referrals, paying 10-15% would be worth it for you. Then you can send them to your direct booking site instead of Airbnb. And also building out your direct booking email list so you can market to anybody that stayed with you in the summer in the past and get them to come back. These are all important ways to book up your property during that slower period. All right, Margaret, would adding a hot tub increase bookings? In general, I would say yes. Any additional amenity will improve your bookings in some way, but it's important that you identify how much that hot tub is going to be worth. And the way that you can do this, the best way, is to go on AirDNA. It's a data site that looks at all properties in the area, and you can pick out about 10 properties ideally that are exactly like yours and the way that it is now. And then you want to pick out 5 to 10 properties that are slightly nicer than yours, that have better amenities, that may even have a hot tub where yours does not. And you want to compare pricing on those and overall revenue for the year. If you find that the properties with the hot tubs or with the extra amenities are making enough money to make it worth the investment, let's say a hot tub's $5,000, and you find the properties make about $10,000 more per year, then in that case, I would say go for it, buy the hot tub. But if you find that the revenue is about the same, then I wouldn't immediately go to running towards a hot tub. And so it's important to figure out what that additional amenity is going to be worth to you before you decide to invest in it. All right, Bobby, how do I make sure I'm not undercharging? So the easiest way that I would say to figure out if you're undercharging or not is to go to Airbnb, and we're going to build a wish list. So let's say that this is our property, just to make it easy, in Kissimmee, Florida. We're going to go to Kissimmee, Florida. I'm going to do a flexible search that way, and I'm going to do a week. That way, all the properties that are available will show up. And I'm going to search for 16 plus guests. That way, homes most similar to mine will pop up. See, there's my listing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new wish list. I'm going to create a new wish list. I'm going to do test Kissimmee 2026. And then I'm going to strategically go through all of these, and I'm not going to do this for sake of time, but I'm going to add, let's say that all of these are very similar to my property. I picked out all of these, and now what I can do to make sure that my pricing is dialed in correctly is I can go to my wish list, and now I can use this to test pricing. So let's go out to a date where there's more properties available. Maybe they require a week for this. Okay, looks like January is pretty hot for these homes. Let's keep going. Okay, so here's 3 available. See, one of our home is available, and these are as well. So for this scenario, we could say that we're dramatically underpriced here. We're at almost $4,000, and these are at $6,200. So these two are very competitive, but ours is not. And so you get the spiel here. We're going to go through the different months throughout the year, and we're going to identify times where our pricing is either under or over where it should be. See, even here, our properties at 3,400, these are over 8,000. And this will help you determine where your pricing should be year round. All right, Norma, how does the Airbnb algorithm affect pricing? So the algorithm doesn't really, I wouldn't say directly affect pricing. Your pricing affects your ranking in the algorithm. So what I mean by that is Airbnb creates what I call a relevancy factor. They look at your pricing and they determine whether your pricing is relevant to what the market is willing to pay. And if you're too expensive, like if you're way too overpriced, or you're too cheap, Airbnb is going to dock your ranking. So for instance, in this scenario, if we're at 3,400 and everybody else in the area is at 8,800, 8,600, 8,300, we're dramatically underpriced in this scenario. You have to keep in mind, all of our listings are assets for Airbnb. They're using our properties to make themselves money. So in this scenario, if there's 11 other properties, 12 other properties just like mine, but they're more than double the price, it would be against Airbnb's best interest to promote me instead of them, because they're going to make double the fees, even more than double the fees. And so this is why it's very important to have relevant pricing. We can't be underpriced and we can't be overpriced, because if Airbnb knows that we either won't get booked because we're too expensive or they won't make as many fees because we're too cheap, they would rather promote another listing that will make them more money. And that's how it affects the algorithm. How to identify high demand dates to price correctly? So to keep it really simple, you could go through and do the same scenario with this wish list. Otherwise, you would need to use a pricing software like Beyond Pricing. That's our favorite. And you can go through and use that to adjust your pricing. Let's keep going. Michelle, how do I price like top performing comps and get on page 1 to 3? So the best way to price like top performers, and I would recommend doing this anytime that you build any kind of wish list, is first identifying the top performers in your market. And the way that we want to do this is by going, let's just stay on the Kissimmee route, not New Orleans. All right, we'll just do Kissimmee View. And then we'll go to top short-term rentals on Airbnb. Yes, this is a paid subscription, but if you're a serious investor and you're planning on doing this for a while, definitely worth the investment. And then we want to sort this by revenue. But something else that we want to do, of course, is make sure that we're sorting this by number of guests at least. This way we can figure out all our top performers. And then what we're going to do is identify all the ones that are just like our property, that are top performers on top of this list. Go to Airbnb, and then we can save it to our wish list. Okay, so that's how you find top performers, and then you would run the same process to go through and check pricing throughout the year. All right, Dottie, pricing is my toughest challenge. How do I fix it? So first off, I would recommend, again, building a wish list, going through every month throughout the year on only top performers and identifying where your pricing should be. And then I would set up a pricing software like Beyond Pricing. If you do this correctly, then you won't have to touch pricing much at all except for last minute. You'll be competitive on your peak season, even your like holiday dates, and you can make last minute manual adjustments to fill any vacancy. David, what's your opinion on the Fort Lauderdale market? I like Fort Lauderdale. I think it's a solid market. I have not invested there recently. We've had a lot of clients there. But ultimately, I would say it's going to be up to regulation from where I make a final decision. I would want to contact, before I bought in Fort Lauderdale, I would want to contact and identify if there's any new or upcoming regulations for short-term rentals in the area. And then I could figure out, if it makes sense for me to invest there or not, if I'm going to get the highest ROI on my investment from there. David Young, how do you evaluate location, price, size and must have amenities before buying. So as far as location, we use, let me just show you this real quick. We use this little tool that we built. So this tool is designed to identify markets. So where you're asking, how do you identify location, price, size, amenities, stuff like that, we do what's called building your buy box. So I'm going to go through and let's say that, we stay on the Fort Lauderdale wave here. And then this one, let's say it's Kissimmee. Hopefully I spelled that right. Now what it's going to do is it's going to take all this information and it's going to transfer it over to these other tabs here. And what we can do is we can go in here and we can identify, hey, for a 1-bedroom home, what are we looking at as far as purchase price? You can go to something like Realtor.com or Zillow and typically find the average purchase price here. Then you can figure out your upfront investment from this. So what would it cost you to put 20% down, and then how much would you estimate you're spending on furniture? Plug it in here. AirDNA, average monthly revenue potential. You can go to AirDNA, you can do a quick overview, you can do a 1-bedroom home, sleeps up to 3 people, and your average is going to be around $25,000. You can plug that number in right there as well. Divided by 12, of course, that way you get the monthly mortgage amount, all your utility costs, cleaning, maintenance, software, other, and then you get your cash on cash return for the year for that size of home in that market. And what this is going to do is slowly allow you to weed out sizes of homes and markets that wouldn't make sense, and you'll be left with a few that do make sense. And then from there, you can make a decision on where you want to pursue your next property. Hopefully that makes sense. Ronald, what amenities matter most in high-end villas? It depends exclusively on location, Ronald. There are markets like Broken Bow, Oklahoma, where if you don't have a hot tub, you're basically dead in the market. Some markets, it's a sauna. I would say in general, if you can make sense of it, a hot tub is always a great add-on. Again, if you can make sense of it, if it makes sense to invest in the property, or invest in that product. But each market's going to be a little bit different. So without having more context, I can't give you a whole lot of clarity there. How do you balance owner expectations with market reality? I'm very blunt with owners that we co-host for. I tell them from the beginning, this is what the market looks like. This is how much income you can expect to make. Here's your slow season. And this can be done with AirDNA as well. So if you go into revenue for the market, you can see average revenue of the last 12 months and see where their slow periods and their high periods are going to be for that specific market. And this is something you can walk through with them from day one. Lafayette, how do I scale my short-term rental portfolio? Well, it depends on what situation you're in, Lafayette. If you're typically with real estate, you need 3 major things. You need time, money, or education. If you have the time, but you don't have the money and education, I would recommend getting the education and then identifying what strategy makes the most sense for you. Right now, we're heavily focused on the co-hosting strategy. We closed over 150 units in 90 days. The plan's to get over 1,000 units in the next 2 years. In my opinion, that's the best option for us. We're going to take all that cash and put it into hotels and purchase commercial real estate. If you're sitting on a ton of cash, then it may make more sense to buy. But in my opinion, until you have $20,000 to $50,000 a month, you can dump directly into buying real estate. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, you've got the tax benefits, you've got the appreciation, you've got all that stuff. But if you're not making enough money, none of that really matters. Like if you're not paying a whole lot of taxes, what is a $100,000 in a cost segregation study going to do for you? It's not going to do much of anything. And so we need to increase the cash flow first before we keep buying, in my opinion. Jacqueline, what systems are needed to scale from 10 to 50 properties. So at 10 properties, you should at least have a property management system and a pricing software. This is going to allow you to set up a lot of automations, make sure that you don't have to manually adjust a whole lot of pricing except for last minute. And then once you get to 12 to 15, you're definitely going to want to hire, if not sooner, a virtual assistant around this time. So somebody in the Philippines, we use a great company called Sphere Rocket. If you want more info on them, reach out to us. I'll send you a referral link. They're fantastic. We have 5 VAs from them. But you want to hire a VA in the Philippines for $4 to $7 an hour, somebody that can help you with admin tasks and responding to guests. Going up to 50 units, if you're doing co-hosting, you're going to need some kind of onboarding agent, somebody to take those meetings from you and manage the day-to-day so that you can be the one focused on growing the business and make all the big decisions, so you're not bogged down by all the admin tasks and things that really suck your time away. All right, Dave, what's the best way to finance expansion? Again, this is going to be very, like my response is going to be very based on how much cash you currently have. If you absolutely don't want to co-host, you're solely stuck on buying, then I would learn creative finance strategies. That way you're not stuck to traditional financing or going to a bank anytime you want to buy a new place. Ashley, how do you manage time as you scale? As you scale, you need to constantly do what's called a time audit. So we have this time audit tool in our community where you can put in what you're making in a month. So let's say you're making $10,000 a month, and right now you're considering getting rid of, let's just say, messaging guests. Let's say right now in a week it's taking you about 360 minutes. And this is an administrative task. Is it necessary? Absolutely. Can it be delegated? Yes. Cost to delegate, $7 an hour or less. Recommendation, hand it off. So this is a great tool with auditing your time, but I would say what I do in general for making sure I'm managing my time effectively is I constantly do a time audit. As we're growing and getting more properties and changing the way we do business, I'm constantly doing a time audit to figure out what my time is worth and what the highest and best use of that time is. Because in most cases, I'm spending a lot of time doing things in my business that don't make sense. I'm responding to messages. I'm responding to tons of email. One great thing I did recently is getting an executive assistant, somebody to go through my email every day. And anything that doesn't need any of my time, he puts in a folder or he delegates to somebody else on our team. Anything else that absolutely needs my attention, he puts in my main inbox so that I can see it the next time I open it up. Rebecca, how do you adapt when the travel nurse market dries up? I personally wouldn't rely on travel nurses. In my experience, in all the markets we've operated in, they're tire kickers. They know they can get a better deal, and they're not willing to pay market premiums anymore. So we still do open it up in case they come to us. But instead, what we focused on primarily, let me get a water. What we focused on primarily is the insurance claims, the corporate housing, people traveling for business, for work. Recently, we hosted a team of electricians swapping out all the signs for the Walmarts in the area. So we're focusing on things like that instead of travel nurses because we found they're just willing to pay a lot more and they're a lot easier to work with. Paul, why does Furnish Finder outperform Airbnb in some markets? Yeah, Paul, in some markets it is the exact opposite. Like I think New Jersey's really good for Furnish Finder. And it may not be that Furnish Finder outperforms Airbnb. It may just be that you're not optimized on Airbnb. You would not believe how many times we've seen crazy experiences with Airbnb after we actually get optimized. One of our recent clients, Debbie, I think her best month up to maybe it was July was like $3,500 on Airbnb, and she had a big portfolio. And in her mind, she was like, yeah, Airbnb just sucks. It doesn't really work for us. We came in, we optimized her whole portfolio. She went to $35,000 on Airbnb the very next month. And the only problem was she just wasn't optimized. And then it became her primary marketing platform. Rachel, how do I maximize revenue and promote my Airbnb with little money? Optimization. That's it. You don't have to take new photos. In most cases, you don't have to add more decor, design, amenities. If you're just fully optimized, you don't have to do a thing else. Just make sure that you're showing up as much as you possibly can, you're priced correctly, and you're showing people what they want to see when they want to see it. Jolly, how do I get more people to book and increase revenue? Same things, optimization. What's the best way to drive direct bookings and avoid platform fees? It's to build an email list, Michelle. So building that email list allows you to have people that you can send out messages to all throughout the year whenever you're having discounts, if you have big cancellations. And that way you can drive direct traffic to your site because guests hate paying platform fees too. And so if you can make that much easier for them by showing them a direct and cheaper way to book, then they will. But the key is to have that email address, and you can use platforms like StayFi, which is which is a Wi-Fi portal, which allows you to collect their information. So just like if you go to a Starbucks or Panera Bread, something like that, you log into their Wi-Fi, they ask you for your email address so they can market to you later on. You're doing the same thing. Before your guests log into the Wi-Fi, you ask for their email. That way you can market to them later. Kathy, what's the ideal word or character length for an optimized Airbnb listing? I wouldn't say there's an ideal word or character length, to be honest. I would say that the ideal length is as long as it takes to identify every possible keyword that you can and show people the location features of your property and why they should stay with you over anyone else. So in general, I would say you're not going to be able to get through that for less than, probably 1,000 characters. But it should be as long as it needs to be to get the point across. Gary, how do I track income properly to keep the IRS happy? So with Airbnb income, in most states, they're paying your occupancy tax for you anyway. So you're just paying for income tax for the business. So hopefully you have an LLC set up. You're taking in that income to the LLC, and then you're filing the taxes for that active income. If you have multiple properties, it's very helpful to set up QuickBooks and use what's called classes. That way you can separate all your income and expenses into individual classes for each property. Pam, how do you get rid of negative reviews? You have to use their policy for reviews against them. So we have a great bot that we've built that helps with this. It cross-references Airbnb's review policy, and it will submit a claim. Well, it won't submit on your behalf, but it'll write it for you so that it aligns with what Airbnb is looking for a proper review rebuttal. Diana, how do you set up a 501c3 to offer free stays to veterans? This would be an attorney question. It's going to depend on your state. So I would call a real estate attorney or somebody that sets up 501c3s to go through that with you. That's not my area of expertise. How do I get started with Airbnb with no properties? Harriet, co-hosting. With co-hosting, I started with the arbitrage method. I would no longer recommend it. I don't think it's nearly as profitable as it used to be, just in my opinion. With co-hosting, you can get into a property for no money out of pocket. You have little to no risk. You can manage it without managing cleaning and maintenance, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we have properties that we make anywhere from $300 to $2,000 a month on, using that exact same model, not managing cleaning or maintenance, all across the world. So in my opinion, that is the biggest opportunity to either start or scale without any properties. B, how do I turn my home into an Airbnb? Take a few photos, make sure you write out a search engine optimized description, organize your photos properly, identify where you should be priced at, go through a quick checklist, make sure your cleaning fees set up, everything is set up on your listing as far as explaining to guests where everything is, and then just go live. Just go ahead and get started. You would not believe how many people waste tons of time trying to make everything perfect when it never will be. You're going to learn a lot along the way, but as long as you feel like everything's set up properly, then I would go ahead and get started. If you have the budget, definitely make sure that you invest in some solid coaching, either with another company that does optimization, or you can come to us at Shortcut to Superhost. But optimization is really what's going to make that property successful. But as far as turning it into an Airbnb and getting it up on the platform, that you can do that within 30 minutes. Very easy process. Also want to throw in, make sure it's legal in your area. Check with your zoning and planning department before you do that too. How do I do listing and pricing optimization? Or how do listing and pricing optimization courses actually help? So they help in a few major areas, Michael. So first off, they show you how to get more visibility. So basically more at-bats, more opportunity. How to speak to people in the way they want to be sold to from an Airbnb standpoint, how to price correctly at a rate they're willing to pay year-round, and how to adjust things based on the data. So really all optimization is aligning a listing better with the algorithm and what it's telling you. If you have a very low conversion rate, it means that for some reason, what you're showing your guest, they don't like. So you need to make a couple adjustments either in the photo order or pricing. And so pricing and optimization courses really just show you how to do all of that, how to set your foundation, how to make adjustments properly, and how to do all these changes in the right way. All right, I hope this video answered a lot of the questions you guys had. One thing you probably noticed is that a lot of these issues all point back to the same core topics: optimization, generating more revenue, and understanding how the algorithm actually works on Airbnb. And really, in reality, all platforms like VRBO and others too. If you want to go deeper on that, we host routine in-depth webinars where we break down exactly how to optimize your listings and increase revenue step by step. If you want to join the next one, just check the comment section below and register for the upcoming call. And if this video is helpful, make sure you like the video, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway or your next question, and subscribe to the channel. We put out content like this all the time to help you grow and scale your short-term rental business. I'll see you on the next one.